The Mayo Experience.
That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, doing a quick rankings adjustment 2020 Week 1 fantasy football rankings at each position with some of the latest news. If you missed the entire Week 1 rankings debate, it's easy stuff. Hit the description of this video or podcast and you can find said link. As you can find the link to all of my positional rankings, which I've been updating daily and adjusting the injury report as we go along. Friday, after the finalized injury report comes out around 4 p.m. Eastern time, I will have an injury update show on the Pat Mayo Experience audio feed and the Mayo Media Network video feed after that goes. Remember to smash the like button for the video and you tell me which player that everyone's kind of overlooking this week that you think is going to go off. If you have him on your bench, you got to get that guy in your lineup this week. So we're going to be breaking down the latest news. I also have a few giveaways. If you go to ftndaily.com or ftnbets.com and get one of the football packages up there, which I highly recommend if you're into stats and you're into tools and to not having 80,000 tabs open at the top of your screen at one time, and you can find everything all in one easy place. That's what you can get with the tools at FTN Daily and FTNBets.com. You buy one of those packages, you screenshot it to me using the code MAYO for a discount, and 2 lucky people, one from each of those packages, is going to get their money refunded, yet still have access to the entire package for all of the football season. So I highly recommend you go do that. Also, if you want to play in my Listeners League on DraftKings Week 1, link is in the description of this video and podcast. Spread Picks show came out yesterday too. Just subscribe to the network and everything's going to be fine. Jake Ciely from theathletic.com is on the line with me. His power just went out, but then it came back on. So he's here. You ready to talk about this?
I don't know what's this. I am ready for week 1, but I don't know what's this.
Well, we talked about my rankings on the show before. We debated each of the positions, and we didn't really come to too many compromises. But your rankings on the Athletic are they're out now, right?
No,
oh,
Tuesday night, midnight.
Oh my God,
Tuesday night. Yeah,
you got to get those out earlier. People need to be clicking.
No, that's it's paywall. SEO doesn't matter as much.
Oh, I suppose that's true. Although people would like access to those rankings, then you can update them every day, like I have to, because they're out like a week early.
That's exactly why I don't.
Stuff that's changed since the last time that we talked, and again, like 95% of that show holds up from an information standpoint. 50% of it, my end, probably doesn't hold up from a good pick standpoint. Just terrible rankings, terrible picks. But the Jags backfield, James Robinson is now listed as the running back number 1. Ozigbo is down to number 2, and we know the role that Chris Thompson's going to play. Raquel Armstead is just on the COVID list, and we're not going to see him for a while, at least according to Coach Doug Marrone. The problem here is, we talked about it then. I had Ozigbo above Robinson because that's just the way that it was looking, but I had Thompson as the highest in my rankings, both for week 1 and for the overall draft season. But do we want any of these guys? Like, just because James Robinson is listed as number 1 on the depth chart, A, that could just be fake news. And 2, like, do we care? Like, what do we do with him in week 1? Just not play any of these guys besides Chris Thompson?
No, for week 1, it's just Chris Thompson, unless you want to go for the home run play, and then you go for James Robinson because he has 3-down ability, and Zigbo is more of a person that needs a compliment like Chris Thompson. But he might be the lead guy. He might get a touchdown. Like, again, this is only if you're going for a home run, which you probably don't need to do in week 1. But as I wrote in the waiver column, go pick up both of them. I prefer James Robinson because he has that 3-down ability, but pick up both of them. We don't know what's going to happen. There's 2 things here. Like, I get the excitement because people want to find the next great running back that nobody got, and you got him for nothing because you picked him off the waivers. But I also don't get the people over Twitter like, oh, do we really want a running back on the Jacksonville Jaguars? Yes, you want a running back on the Jacksonville Jaguars. If somebody's getting 15 plus touches every single week, you want them. It doesn't matter what damn team they play for. Everybody's thumbing their nose up like they're too good to have a Jacksonville Jaguars running back. Obviously, if it's a full-blown committee, it's just what we've been saying, and we said on your last show and before that, and you've been talking about this entire offseason, is Chris Thompson. But if something happens and James Robinson comes out in week 1 and has 16 carries for 70 yards and another 2 or 3 catches, people are going to go bananas. They're going to blow their entire budget. They're going to go after him in the first waiver spot. So get him now in case that happens. Don't start him But just in case that happens, at least see what happens in week one.
I am adjusting the rankings. So I have Ozigbo dropped outside the top 50 for week one rankings. I have Chris Thompson at number 27 because they're 8-point underdogs against the Colts, even at home. I think he's going to have a very good PPR floor, even better than someone like, let's say, even James White, who we're going to get to in a second. But would you start James Robinson or Kerryon Johnson in week one, now with Adrian Peterson in town?
That's the Adrian Peterson in town part. It is really interesting. So, you know what? At that point, what is Adrian Peterson probably going to get you? Maybe 60 and a touchdown. So that's against the Bears too, correct? Right? Bears are week one.
Bears week one. Yeah,
I think.
Oh, well, would you play Peterson or Kerryon?
I'd play Peterson.
I think I'd play. I mean, it's very clear that they don't want Kerryon whatsoever. But I think but at least for week one, you got to think that if there's ever a week to use him, it would be this week. I wouldn't want to use him, but I think out of all Lions running backs, here's the thing: it's probably Lions running backs that you don't want because that's going to just be full blown committee regardless of what happens.
Until DeAndre Swift takes
even when he's back, you don't sign Adrian Peterson just because you feel so good about Swift.
No, you sign Adrian Peterson because you don't know if Swift's healthy for week one. You don't draft DeAndre Swift if you don't plan for him to be your option.
I don't know. It's just the same thing that happened with like Damian Harris and with the Patriots or Rashad Penny with the Seahawks.
Damian Harris was hurt.
Sometimes you get these guys, it just turns out they're no good.
No. It wasn't. It's still not that he's any good. Damian Harris got hurt, and he's also playing for a Belichick team that has 18 options to begin with.
Sure, but he's still not. I mean, he came back after he could have played towards the end of last year and was just never active after he returned from his injury, and now he's back on the PUP list already. Yeah,
because he's hurt. DeAndre Swift is not Damian Harris.
He's already hurt.
So that makes him Damian Harris just because
I don't know. Here's the thing: like, if it's not going to be like, if it's a 1 week injury for Swift, no big deal. If it's 4 week, let's sign Adrian Peterson. Like, you can't just run out the myriad of running backs you already have. It's such an essential thing that you have to go out and get Adrian Peterson. Like, this just reeks of committee.
Yeah, because that was the whole appeal to the Lions is that they drafted DeAndre Swift and their backup options were Bo Scarborough and Jason Huntley, who they let go. They let Huntley go. They brought in Adrian Peterson just for the depth situation. This is not his backfield unless DeAndre Swift just never comes back. That's what it is.
I don't know. I don't trust Matt Patricia. I don't trust this backfield.
No, well, that's fine. I'll buy DeAndre Swift off to you every single league.
That would assume I had him in the first place, which I don't. So you would play Peterson over Kerryon. Would you play James Washington over any of those guys?
You mean James Robinson?
James
Robinson, why are you going to wide receivers?
Yeah, James Robinson over those guys.
I mean, between all of this, I don't. Why are we making this decision in week one? How bad is your team that you're deciding between Adrian Peterson, Kerryon Johnson, and James Robinson? Like, what the hell did you do? That's really what the question should be.
I called you to do the update because these are the names that people are talking about right now. These are the questions that I'm getting about these guys. Like, where do I put them in the ranks? Like, I have them behind Phillip Lindsay, for example. I would rather play Phillip Lindsay than all of these guys. We'll throw Fournette into this bucket too. Would you play Fournette over all of these guys?
Yes.
Yes, you would. So would you play Fournette over Ronald Jones?
Yeah, half point, full point PPR, I would.
Yeah, I think I'm starting to lean that way as well because it feels like if anyone's going to get a touchdown on the Bucs, it's probably going to be Fournette, not Ronald Jones.
Well, but here's the thing too. You want to talk about teams showing us or trying to tell us what they're really thinking with their actions. You don't believe in Ronald Jones if you sign LaShawn McCoy and then pick up Leonard Fournette. That doesn't tell me you believe Ronald Jones. Like, can we stop with that? So maybe Leonard Fournette takes a week or two to get into the groove of things. Tom Brady loved his Instagram post. Tom Brady's on board with Leonard Fournette. I would, and to go to the other one, if you're going for upside, like maybe your running back stunk because you drafted a month or two ago. Maybe you have Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette. If you want to go for the home run play, it's James Robinson. I say in week one, this is what we look at for lineups. This if you have to make this decision. If you're going the safest route, I would assume the safest route is Adrian Peterson. I would assume the highest ceiling is James Robinson. I would not really want to mess with any of it, though.
So of the guys that we've just mentioned in my week one rankings, I've adjusted them around. Again, you can find them up on dkplaybook.com and in the description of this video and podcast. But I have Chris Thompson, number 27. I have Leonard Fournette, number 30. James Robinson, number 33. That's one spot ahead of James White and Jordan Howard. Just not quite sure of how that's going to go. And then Kerryon Johnson, 41. Adrian Peterson, 43. I still think I'm going to lean with the guy that's been on the team, although it's very clear that they hate his guts.
Well, I mean, man, talk about not possibly being healthy. The dude's had a knee brace his entire offseason. Maybe he's still not 100%.
He hasn't shown up on any of the injury reports, though. Maybe this knee brace
And he
is
hasn't
solved.
showed up on any positive report. Like nobody said, "Oh, Kerryon Johnson looks good." Tell me that's not concerning. With as positive as off seasons are every single year, there hasn't been one report saying Kerryon Johnson looks like he's got his explosiveness back. Kerryon Johnson looks like he's going to hold off DeAndre Swift. There has been nothing good about Kerryon Johnson.
Just the fact that he hasn't showed up on an injury report is stunning. So at least if he's healthy, maybe he has one good week in him. I mean, I have him at number 41. I'm actively trying to not play Kerryon Johnson if I don't have to. I don't want to play Adrian Peterson either. But like, I think that those guys are on a substantial gap down from some of the other guys that we talked about, who in turn are running back threes at best. Like they're flex plays if your team sucks.
Right. All right. So yeah, don't deal with the situation if you don't have to. I'd play wide receivers at my flex before I messed with this.
I think it's funny that people get really like bogged down into that's how people did fail. Like Andercuss is the biggest proponent of this. He's like, you got to play a running back in your flex spots. Like that's like what people did 15 years ago. There are so many better like fringe wide receivers than there are running backs. Like it's insane.
Yeah, it's not even fringe. I mean, there's like upside guys. Like for my rankings column, I do sleepers at the beginning, and like calling my chase the river play, like the boomer bust is Deontay Johnson, which a lot of people probably want to play anyway. But he's facing Isaac Yiadom, however you say his name, the guy that the Giants traded like a six.
Dr. Isaac Yankum, the guy who would become Kane and fought Bret Hart at SummerSlam in 1993.
Did you just pull? That's like might be the deepest pull you've ever had.
I just remember that very vividly from when I was a kid.
You're like 5% of your audience knows what the hell
5%. Come on, way lower than that.
So in any case, this is somebody who you exploited in matchups last year when he was on the Broncos, and the Giants traded for him because they have no healthy options back there besides Bradbury, and then they just signed Logan Ryan, who's going to play safety or some hybrid type of situation. But anyway, the option here, the situation is that Deontay Johnson should be drawing Yiadom. So Yiadom, however you say his last name, whatever. But point being is like I'd play those kind of guys before I started screwing around with the running backs like this.
2 bits of wide receiver news as of right now. Devontae Parker looks like he's fine with his minor injury that was never disclosed. So I've moved Devontae Parker back up. I had him recently. I just put him down early on in the week when we first did the show because I didn't know what this injury was all about because no one would say anything. Now apparently it's fine. I moved him up to number 27 in week 1. Basically, I took him and put him in the Brandon Cook spot because, hey, guess what? Brandon Cook's already hurt. It's going to be on Thursday night. Maybe if he's somewhat limited, maybe not, but I'm going to go with Fuller over Cooks in week 1, and I'm going to move Cooks down to number 36 in the rankings behind Henry Ruggs. Do you worry about either of these guys? Because whenever I hear anything in Brandon Cooks, it starts to worry me a little bit.
Well, so I will reference one thing, and it's credit to them, but Stefania Bell for ESPN said you got to remember one. This is when I was talking about Travis Kelce earlier this morning, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, he hyperextended the knee." Travis Kelce, panic! Run for the hills. But what she was saying is the fact that the new rules that were actually started last year is you have to report everything once you get to injuries practice. Like if you miss practice or you have to step out from practice, you have to report what it is now for the NFL. Blame the damn Patriots for this, but the Brandon Cooks one, at least what some of the beat writers are saying is that it's not that big of a deal. It's just they're making sure he's healthy. It is Monday. Now it's Tuesday. They're just making sure it's not anything that tweak that's going to carry over to the game. Should be fine. So that's one of the things is like this might not even been reported in years past, 2-3 years ago. So I'm not that worried. If Cooks starts the game, I'd still go Cooks over Fuller, but I understand the trepidation given his injury history is mostly the concussions.
It is, but just anything with him. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh God, here we go. If he's one step slower, is that going to be like his 28th concussion? And then he's out for the rest of the game. I don't want that in week 1. Not in the opening game. Jake, I can't handle it. Not that I have a ton of Brandon Cooks, but if I was
just about to say, you probably didn't even draft them.
No, I drafted Will Fuller.
Yeah.
So I'm super psyched to get my one game out of. Hopefully it's really great, and it happens in the Thursday night game. I mean, that's the one thing that people overlook in fantasy football. I mean, some people want the hammer of the Monday night game to come back and storm the scoreboard in your matchup. I think you should build positive momentum going into the weekend by having some good Thursday performances. It just plays with the psychology of the players on your team. It's like when you rest. It's like when you rest your guys if you have a first round bye in the fantasy playoffs, you take your guys from their starting spots and put them on your bench. You give them the theoretical rest that week. I mean, that goes a long way for your fantasy team.
No. So it's all that. I actually like Thursday for the reason, like it's both psychological, as you said, and for your own team. So if you go into Thursday night, you play Brandon Cooks, he goes off. Now, when you're trying to make a decision, maybe in your flex, you say, hey, do I need safe or do I need upside? Now you know you can take the safe one, the tiebreaker that you're going to frustrate yourself with. If he does nothing, gets hurt, leaves early, now you need a breakout play. And then conversely, the psychological thing, as you just mentioned, Brandon Cooks does go off, Will Fuller goes off, and all of a sudden your opponent's looking at a 20-point deficit, are ready to start the week. They're going to be more aggressive in their own lineup and potentially make a bad decision.
Yeah, it might be the difference between playing someone like Jamison Crowder, who I would say is probably a floor play, a safer play, someone I like better than, like, let's say, Deshaun Jackson. But at the same time, if one of them is going to score 30 points, it's probably Deshaun Jackson.
I don't know. I don't know if you saw. Remember last year, Jamison Crowder put up 40 points in 2 games against the Bills, surprisingly.
Well, I know it's actually one of my favorite prop bets for week 1 is over Jamison Crowder receptions. But that could, if he doesn't get into the end zone, then it's all of a sudden like 8 catches for 57 yards or something like that. Where Djax, being like the only guy left standing in Philly, could just be bomb central to him.
It could be the Julian Edelman special, 13 for 80, and get you 21 points.
I would take it. I have a lot of Jamison Crowder, so I mean, I would definitely take that. But what I'm just overall discussing, not necessarily their matchup week 1, but the types of players that they are. You have your safe, solid, like PPR type guys that are going to do most of their damage through bulk and volume, but not a lot of yardage. Where then you have your high ADOT players like Deshaun Jackson, or at least the vision of Deshaun Jackson that we have in our heads, that he's the big play guy. He's going to score you an 80-yard touchdown, that kind of thing, because of his speed. Where, put to the test, if you're down by 20 points, you probably want to roll the dice in your matchup with the long touchdown guy over sort of the safer guy who's, probably guaranteed to get you at least 8 points, but probably nothing more than 16 unless he really goes off.
Right.
Yes. I'm not spelling it out there for anyone who's new.
Correct.
Any other wide receivers? So let's talk about the Eagles, because it looks like Rager is going to be back for week 2. He's going to miss week 1. Alshon's like off this planet at this point. Besides Deshaun Jackson, did you have a feel for who's going to be the other one? Is it going to be Arcega-Whiteside? Is it going to be Greg Ward?
Arcega-Whiteside, apparently. You got to say it right now.
I don't
know.
No. I don't pronounce anyone's name right until they actually have a decent fantasy performance, ever.
All right. Well, so in any case, it sounds like Arcega-Whiteside is. What did I say? Didn't we just talk about this in the last episode? I brought up the N'Keal Harry comparison. I don't know how many shows I do at this point. They all get mixed together. I just continually have said, why are people so ready to go back and buy into N'Keal Harry, who, for all reports, was having a bad offseason, and yet they just threw J.J. Arcega-Whiteside in the trash, who had a similar high ceiling coming out of the draft, and everybody was super excited for him, had a miserable rookie season, just like Harry. But the difference between Harry and him, he was having the positive spin. Looks good. Looks like potentially the guy they drafted, blah, blah, blah. And they're both in the same situation. They're both the number 2s right now. I'm not saying go drop people for Arcega-Whiteside and get super excited and maybe just see what happens in week 1. But Deshaun Jackson's not exactly a prime example of health. Arcega-Whiteside might just be one to remember the name if something happens on the waiver wire, and it might even be week 1. But then again, Deshaun Jackson, he's the epitome. He's the one everybody remembers for the myth of revenge games, because he does it every single time. And he also does a lot in week 1s very often. So I feel like Djax is like a smash in week 1, honestly.
We talked about Damian Harris going to the injured reserve. That wasn't the case the last time that we had spoke. It just looked like he was going to miss week 1, or at least be limited in week 1. Is this just a situation where Sony Michel is coming back from this foot injury? Mike Reese is reporting out of Boston that he might get in and be mixed in, that it's James White or no one, and even James White probably isn't that great of a play.
I think it's just James White. No, I don't have a problem with him not being that great. I think he is a good play. We saw Chris McCaffrey caught plenty from Cam Newton.
Sure, but that's also assuming James White's Christian McCaffrey, which he's not.
No, but my point is, James White, he's not going to get hurt by Cam Newton. He's still going to see passes come his way. I'm not talking about Christian McCaffrey volume. Just like everybody wants to say, oh, now Cam Newton's there, it's going to kill James White's value. Why? Cam Newton knows how to throw to the running back.
Cam Newton didn't throw to running backs until Christian McCaffrey came along. I get that that's in his
So it's not like he forgot.
No, it's not like he didn't forget, but it's not sort of the same snap share where Christian McCaffrey is on the field for 100% of snaps. If the game flow goes awry, then all of a sudden James White's not going to be on the field, not being able to catch passes.
No, but I'm not putting James White as an RB1. We're putting James White where he always deserves to be, as a flex RB3, and a solid one at that. Somebody you could trust, and the only one that you want to trust in this backfield. I don't think anything's changed from the Patriots backfield that we've always understood. The only thing is, like, Rex Burkhead might score 2 touchdowns in the first week, and everybody's going to go bananas for him on the waiver wire, and then watch him put up a dud next week.
Well, in half point and or PPR, I have James White. For my half point rankings, I have James White at number 34 in the rankings. I actually put James Robinson a spot ahead of him. I think I would, even if it turns out to be 0 points, I think I'd rather roll the dice on Robinson over James White this week.
I don't think I would go that far, but
I
understand what you're saying.
Play James Robinson over James White.
I mean, I'm obviously not changing your opinion. I'm just telling you I wouldn't do it.
I would start Chris Thompson over him too, to tell you the truth.
Well, I would start Chris Thompson, yes, but we've already established my love for Chris Thompson this year.
Fournette or James White?
Fournette. I'll just risk that. I'll risk the Fournette because go back to what has been told by their actions, that they don't like Ronald Jones. And I know he keeps saying he's their guy, but Bruce Arians has said a lot of people are his guy. And then the very first week, that was actually the whole point. You remember this, Pat, about a month ago when Ronald Jones was getting talked up, everybody always started listing out the Arians running backs that he said there was his guy and how none of them panned out. So why are we all of a sudden believing him, picking up Fournette and still saying Ronald Jones? Why are we saying, like, okay, it's still Ronald Jones? It might not be. And if Fournette's going to come in here, Fournette's not great in the passing game, but he's better than Ronald Jones, as we just saw last year. And guess what? He's just as good as a runner, so why wouldn't Fournette potentially get the opportunity here? And I mentioned it. Tom Brady's loving his posts, so if Tom Brady is loving his posts on Instagram, there's something there.
It's just one of these things. You got. I still think that the only must play from the Bucs in Week 1 is Godwin. I mean, you're going to start Evans, obviously, but I think that Godwin's is the legit awesome play, and everyone else just might, like, basically just eat each other. It's like a snake that eats its own tail. Like, there are just too many people around. I don't know who's going to be who.
You're not Gronk smashing in the first week?
No, I'm not Gronk smashing the first week because it's going to be like Cameron, he's bright all of a sudden. And you're going to be like, oh, God.
No, OJ Howard looks great again.
Oh, yeah, everyone, no, he doesn't look great, though. That's the problem. That's the thing, though. People are talking up OJ Howard. They want to play Gronk. If so facto, Cameron Brate goes off. That's just how this works. It's fantasy.
I was watching a home league last night, not mine, a buddy's, and I was watching it online because they had it on Sleeper, and you can watch somehow. I forget how they did. Anyway, Gronk went in the 7th round.
Oh, wow. It's a bad pick.
Yeah. Well, so was the Pittsburgh Steelers in the 9th.
The Pittsburgh Steelers defense?
Yeah.
Hot D. You got to get in on those D. The run of Ds was about to start. Had to jump ahead of the game.
Do you want to guess when the first 2 kickers went?
Oh, 10th round, 8th round?
11th.
I don't actually play in the leagues with kickers anymore. I don't have a single league that has kickers. Actually, maybe one I'm drafting tonight has one. It's one of my old friends' leagues. I just doubt he got rid of kickers. Who is the best kicker?
I don't know. Just was holding up my shirt. Ban kickers. I don't play with kickers. I
understand that, Jake, but you're a big nerd. You're probably like all over who ranks kickers.
I legitimately spend this much of my brain on kickers. Jamie Eisenberg forced me to play. Like, I play this one league for I guess forced me. It's for the St. Jude's, so I'm going to play in the league. But it has kickers, so it forces you to take a kicker. So I went all the way to the very last round. I found somebody that's completely irrelevant, not even on rosters, but he has an awesome name. It was like Jaden Herdenkurst or something. I don't even remember what the guy's name was. It was awesome. I just took an awesome name.
All right. Anything else?
I'll take the zeros.
Anything else that we should add to this, rankings wise? Any more?
Jaden Oberkrom. That's what it was.
Oh, Obercrombie? Perfect. You can wear his shirt while you're not starting kickers. Any other like news and injuries or some sort of player that you think is just moving up the rankings that you weren't so high on, like even a week ago, 4 days ago, that you're like, oh man, that's a lot better.
Zach Moss. I feel like that these reports are legitimate, not so much for the fact of the fumbling issues for Devin Singletary, because there's been fumbling issues with other running backs before, but Zach Moss is better between the tackles, but he's also just as good as a pass catcher. I think I might have told you this on your last show or the show before that. I know we've talked about it, but Singletary, people see him and assume he's a very good pass catcher. He's good. He's just not terrific because people see the size and the style and they assume that. So if Moss is nearly as good as he is in the passing game and Singletary is going to struggle between the tackles and going to struggle with ball control, Zach Moss might be a nice sleeper play for week 1, and he might actually end up, put it this way. I'm buying now on Zach Moss, and I'm also buying Devin Singletary because what if it comes out in 70 to 30 and it's still Singletary? But if it goes one way or the other in week 1, it's going to be too late by week 2. Somebody's going to be all over whoever the running back is.
All right. That will do it on the Pat Mayo Experience Rankings Update. Jake Ciely, you can follow on Twitter at AllInKid. Check out his rankings on theathletic.com. I'm sorry about lipping you for your rankings not being out. I keep forgetting it's Tuesday. For whatever reason, like I'm a day ahead of where I normally am in my schedule because it's week 1. I'm able to work ahead a little bit. I'm like, it's Wednesday and your rankings are now? That's really weird. And they're not coming out till midnight? That's strange. And now it all kind of clicks in my head.
You totally missed the part when I said midnight as well. I actually said the day and everything, and you still didn't click because I'm with you. I do my workout 6 days a week, and I'm already like, I was starting to get ready to do my run, which is normally tomorrow.
Oh, see, there maybe you just pack in two running days in a row and you'll be good. Coming up later this week on Mayo Media Network and the Pat Mayo Experience podcast is going to be Showdown, DraftKings Showdown strategy, DraftKings Showdown picks for the Thursday night game. And we're going to be running Showdown, not featuring me, but with experts in DraftKings Showdown in their own solo videos for the Thursday night and Monday night games every single week this football season. So you'll want to be subscribed to the Mayo Media Network for that. The rankings will be updated on DKPlaybook.com. Mostly everything you can do, you can find in the description of this video, just hot links to go everywhere. So our former ranking show that came out earlier this week, you can go check that out. Still very relevant. The Spread Pick show from Monday, one of the best shows of the year. As always, the flagship show of the Pat Mayo Experience. The one with the least amount of information, but very fun to watch in terms of betting. I released a giant betting show with Rob Pizzola about how to actually bet on the NFL. He's a professional sports bettor, and he gave some incredible insight. One of the coolest chats that I've had in a really long time. A much different vibe than the rest of my shows. I'd suggest you go check that out. I just suggest you watch all the fucking videos, all right? Just go do that. Also, those giveaways, ftndaily.com. You get a football package. You're in a draw if you screenshot it to me to get a free package. You get your money refunded to you. You better use code MAYO to get your discount, though. The same for ftnbets.com for the betting package and all of the tools that go in. I mean, there's a parlay calculator in there. There's all of the stats you could ever need. And if you do shop around for lines, all of a sudden, you can just type in the game that you want. You can find out where the best line is. That is really the best part of this entire package. So ftnbets.com, use code MAYO for all of that. Thank you all for watching. We got more coming out for you this week. Enjoy week 1. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!